Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
How are we?
We're good. We're good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Waiting for Dr. Hill to join, and then we'll get started. See a lot of people starting to join. Give other people time to join as well.
Okie dokie.
Hi, everyone that's logging on. Waiting for my partner to join us, and then she just logged on, and we're gonna get started.
Hello, everyone.
There she go.
Hi everyone.
There she
Hey.
goes.
Hello,
Hey, what's going
hello.
on? What's going on? What's going on? It's taking forever for me to request to join, so I'm sorry I'm a little late.
It's so right on time. It actually just hit
Right
8
on
o'clock.
time. Look at that. Right on
Look
time.
at that. Let's just jump straight
Hey.
into it.
Yes, so hey everyone. Welcome to Talk Therapy Thursday. I am Dr. Hill. I'm with my wonderful, amazing business partner, Dr. Jones.
Gas me now.
You know I had to. I had to. And so we are going to start off with our disclaimer. Just so you know, this is not a form of therapy. This is just two licensed professional counselors giving suggestions and tips with our fellow guests on mental health topics. Now, if you are interested in receiving counseling, please email us. You can click the link in the bio, stepscounselingconsulting.com, or you can send us an email at info@stepscounselingconsulting.com. So I'm going to turn it over to my business partner to introduce tonight's guest and our amazing topic.
Yes, so our topic is being
Yeah.
a father and mental health. Last month, if you joined us, we discussed motherhood and mental health, which is an amazing topic in honor of Mother's Day. And we didn't want to forget about the fathers. I know we tend to
Oh,
do that. When I say we, I mean society. So we definitely did not want to be part of the ones that about fathers, especially the super active fathers that play major roles in the society. So we wanted to discuss it. And unfortunately, mental health is not a topic for men that's as, prevalent to women. So we want to break the stigma. And that's the purpose of our
yes.
and our conversation a few months ago with our guest was so amazing. We thought he'll be a great person for us to have this conversation with again. So I'm actually going to allow him to introduce himself this time because he does such amazing different things. So I want him the opportunity to introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Moses Verneau. I am a self-taught writer slash director slash sometimes actor slash entrepreneur slash student of life slash father of three
I know that's
daughters
right.
slash
Hey, you better add that in there.
still learning, right? And being guided
Yes.
by the Most High and the universe. So that is who I am.
That's why I had him introduce himself because I would have got that all messed up.
Okay. I love the slash. You better add all those slashes on there. I know that's right.
Better. But let's just jump into it. So we're talking about fatherhood. If you can
Mhm.
describe fatherhood in one word, and I know that's super hard. If you can, what would that one word be?
um, One word, it would have to be sacrifice.
Mm.
Sacrifice because I always say that, and when I say sacrifice, I think that sort of encompasses both fatherhood and motherhood. I think that speaks just to being a parent.
Right.
And the reason being is I always say that being a parent is kind of a catch-22 because if you do it right, then you make it about your children, right? But then that means that you're kind of disregarding yourself. But if you make it all about you, then you're
Mm-hmm.
disregarding the children, which is wrong. So it's sort of a catch-22, and as a parent, you never win.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the key is to find the beauty in serving. I mean, you know, serving your children, taking care of your children. I'm someone who's I I'm not really I'm self motivated, but I'm not self gratifying.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, you know, doing for myself doesn't do much for me, but doing for others is what really fuels me and makes me happy. So because of that, like for me, fatherhood, it works. You understand? Because nothing makes me happier than, you know, seeing my kids happy or doing for them.
Mm-hmm. 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 Thank you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. I feel like parents don't give themselves enough
Yeah.
credit sometimes, but then it's um why should we? Because like you kind of said, we have to do it, right? But then
Yeah,
some
we do, but I also think that that's because of society, right? And
Mhm.
it's simply
Mm-hmm.
because when it comes to society, I always say that when it comes to my children, good enough could never be good enough, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
society has kind of set this bar of parenthood so high that even if you need a break or you need to step away, you feel guilty, right?
Mhm.
And you feel
Right.
like you're lacking as a parent because of that, forgetting about the fact that you're human.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And we're
Mm-hmm.
all going to need a break. And the truth is, you have to find that balance. Whereas, yes, you make your children a priority, but at the same time, you also understand that the better you serve yourself, the better you can serve them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Um, and speaking of, so you mentioned like not giving yourself a break sometimes. Sometimes that could impact your mental health. How do you maintain your mental health as a dad?
Um, well, I mean, first and foremost, I'd like to say that my situation is a little unconventional simply because I mean I'm a single father, you know, so unfortunately my 18-year-old, her mother passed when she was about 5 years ago, about when she was 13. So she's been with me ever since. But what I do as far as for my mental health is, I mean, make time for myself. You understand? And also, I mean, the first thing, first and foremost, is understanding that I am human and not putting that pressure on myself to be perfect, right? Um,
Yes.
the most I can do is do the best that I can do, right? But also realize that I am going to make mistakes, you know, because I'm human.
Mm-hmm.
And parenting doesn't come with any type of guide. I mean, you
Right.
learn along the
Mm-hmm.
way, you know, and the biggest lessons come through making mistakes. The tough thing with being a parent is that parents make mistakes and children pay for it for the rest of their lives. So you have to be
Right.
very, 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 very careful with how you communicate with your children, how you treat them. Most importantly, how you make them feel. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important for us to be able to discern the difference between what occurs and how someone feels, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we always look at reality through the lens of what we intended, what our intentions were. But we also have to understand that although your intentions were one thing, it may be received a totally different way. So that way, and as a result, it can make your child feel totally different than you ever intended. And you don't want
Right.
to undermine or disregard their feelings by kind of telling them that they're unjustified for feeling the way that they felt because of the fact that that's not how you intended for it to come across.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Right. I think that really speaks to the word sacrifice and how multidimensional that is in parenthood. Like it's not just sacrificing time or energy, but sometimes it's sacrificing your past self and really realizing I gotta elevate my mind. I gotta, shift how I'm thinking. Like sacrifice can be so multidimensional in a beautiful way, not so much just taken away, but you becoming a whole new person, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I always say, and it's not just as far as parenting, but just as far as life itself. I think that the thing that most of us don't realize, and the thing that most of us don't do, is we don't protect what we value, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's one of the most important things to do, is to protect the things that you claim that you value, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a material thing. And what I say, and what I mean by that is, we say we value our children, we say we value our relationships, but yet we don't want to do the self work to protect these relationships, to prevent them from ending. We don't want to do the
Right.
self work to protect our children, so that way they grow up to be emotionally and mentally balanced human beings, right? Because as parents, what we want to do is protect our child from the rest of the world, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
shelter them, and we covet them, and we try to protect them. But the one thing that we're kind of blind to protecting them from is ourselves, right? Because we don't understand that our children even need protection from us. And the only way to
Hello.
protect your child from yourself is to be able to step outside of yourself, to be able to self-reflect, to
Mm-hmm.
be accountable for your mistakes. You
Mm-hmm.
understand, and to be honest with yourself, and to be able to look in the mirror, and to be able to pinpoint your flaws and accept them, and to do the work so that you can grow, to be a better parent
Man.
for that.
Absolutely. I love that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
with that, we know, and from our last conversation, we know mental health is now becoming more of a topic in our culture. When I say our, in the Black culture, you come from a Haitian background, come from Trinidad, West Indian, all around is now
Hmm.
becoming more of a topic, but we still have a lot of work to do. And I remember from our last conversation, mental health wasn't a topic for you growing up.
Not at all.
Are you trying to break that generational curse?
Um, yes, yes, but in the same breath, I do believe that mental health is. We still have to take responsibility for our actions. I think that there's a balance, you know what I mean? Because mental health can also be used as a crutch, especially when you're talking about children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because children are they're manipulative, and if
They
and
can
if
play both
if
sides.
yeah, if they figure out what that button is that they can push to make you do what it is that they
Mm-hmm.
want you to do, they are going to utilize that. I mean, they're
Yes.
kids, you know, they're kids, right? So they see life from a very selfish standpoint. So to them, manipulating you into doing what they want you to do is the thing, you know. So yes, mental health is very important to me. I do speak to my children about mental health, but in the same breath, I do also speak to them about accountability, because I don't want them
Mm-hmm.
using mental health as a crutch. You know, I need them to be able to be accountable. I need them to be able to take responsibility for their mistakes. And I also need them to understand that I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that we're controlled by our feelings. I don't think that's true. I think we actually control our feelings. I think that, yes, you know, we all go through bouts of depression. We all go through these bouts of emotions, but what we need to understand is that our feelings aren't real. Our feelings are reactions to something real. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? And we have to be able to, instead of falling too deep into our emotions and getting lost in them where we can't find our way out,
Mm-hmm.
we have to have that threshold where it's like, okay, this is enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna do whatever it is that I need to do to pull myself out of this. You know, it's not an easy thing to do, but through practice and through repetition, you are able to gain more control to be able to do so, or to be better at it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Did you have anything to add to that, Dr. Hill?
Yeah, I think honestly, and that's really what therapy is we help. Really, a lot of theories that we use in therapy sessions really help you to realize that control you do have, like CBT, which is cognitive behavioral treatment, solution brief theory. I'm sorry, I just got off work, so my brain is all over the place. Solution focused brief therapy. Don't come for me. Look, I know my theories.
We're
But
gonna have
that
quiz you after.
Okay,
After.
listen, look, don't make me slide my credentials. But no, all jokes aside, that really is what therapy is. It's all about you shifting your mind back into realizing you have control. And I love where you said about accountability. I think, honestly, and this kind of is shifting the topic a little bit, but like, I think that's the problem what's going on with media. Like, you'll have someone shoot up a supermarket, and the next thing you know, they're blaming it on mental health.
Mm-hmm.
That hate is not mental illness. Racism is not a mental illness. So I love that you said it all comes back to that accountability part. We don't want them to use mental health as a crutch, but we do want you to express that something's going
Of
on.
course. Of course, and that's exactly what I am speaking to. I wasn't speaking about it, in that extreme a case as far as a mass shooter or anything like that. But I think that's the perfect example, right? Whereas it's like, okay, the world has learned that mental health can be used as some type of excuse for any type of action. So people kind of use that as something to justify the most heinous of acts. Because once again, like you said, someone who has the intent to plan something like that weeks ahead and goes about it to do
Mm-hmm.
something that horrific. No, that isn't mental health. You understand? Like you said, that's based in hatred. These people
Mm-hmm.
never did anything to you. This isn't something that was spontaneously done. It wasn't in a fit of anger or a fit of rage. No, this is something that you methodically planned out and
Mm-hmm.
you basically did. So no, you should be held accountable for that. And that whole mental health excuse, no, I don't believe in that.
Yeah,
But
behavior. It starts from home, and that's what
Right.
they
That
realize.
accountability. Mm-hmm.
Abs- Absolutely. Um, so you mentioned a lot about, accountability and mental health. You still want to acknowledge it for your daughters, right?
definitely.
Again, going back to we weren't raised learning about mental health. So I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of your friends may not been raised learning about mental health,
No.
right?
Mm-mm.
What advice would you give them entering fatherhood or dealing with any type of mental health with fatherhood?
Well, I think it's very important to keep the right circle around you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very important to keep people around you who, I'm not even going to say maybe a little more informed, but people who may be a little more enlightened. I always say that I don't want to be around people that are exactly like me, right? I want to have a plethora of
Mm-hmm.
different people because I want people who are strong where I'm weak, and and in turn, I want to be strong where they're weak because that makes us a stronger team. I want people that I can lean on. I want people that I can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I say this, it's not just from a intellectual point of view or a an emotionally intelligent point of view. I mean, it's even from a point of view of even someone who knows how to have fun, right? Because I'm a dinosaur.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that can kind of bring me out of my shell. And the reason I'm saying this is as far as parenting, right? It's great to have people around you with different perspectives. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason being is because there are so many different parenting styles.
Right.
Every
Mm-hmm.
child is different. Some people apply more discipline. Some people apply more communication. Some people, their relationship with their child is more rooted in a friendship than anything. And I think that each one of those different parenting styles you can pull something from. So it's great to have people with different perspectives. That way, if the way that you're trying to communicate or the way that you're dealing with your children isn't really getting through to them, then someone in your circle can say, hey, you know what? This may not be working for you, but here's something that I tried that seems to get through to mine. And maybe it can open your eyes to seeing a different perspective to help you, in getting through to your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I'm happy you brought up different parenting style because a pet peeve of mine is when somebody tells someone else how to parent their children. Like, please don't tell me what to do with mine because you're going to see a whole other side. And, I don't mind having this discussion and learning. I'm not saying my way is the right way, but like, even when someone tells me they're about to become a mom or, I say, listen, I'm here if you need me. But I'm not the one to offer unsolicited advice because I don't like when people do it to me. Like, my child is not going to hit the milestones your child hit at the same time and vice versa. So like, don't tell people this is what they have to do and tell them they're like completely, unless it's like something outrageous. You see some
Mhm.
stuff like, all right, now, you know what I mean? But
Right.
who should stop forcing people to parent or try to be like them? Because when you have to take culture into into consideration. You have to take the resources that they may have available. You also have to take in who their child may be. What worked for your child may not work for the next. So I think, and at the same time, when you also have two different parents, you know, raising a child, you guys have to come to a compromise also. And I feel like that sometimes could impact someone's mental health as a parent, because you're not feeling like you're on the same team, and it's like tug of war, and the child is seeing that, and that affects the child. So parents, if you're on the line, I'm saying this from a counselor perspective, as a mother, etc., try to make the other parent of your child your partner and not your enemy. And I'm not saying who may be right, who may be wrong, but try to find some type of compromise and do it behind doors, not in front of the child, because that toxicity is going to affect the child, and then they're going to become Dr. Hill and I's client. And then I'm making fun of it, but it's a real situation, because it's so many times, I hear my clients, and I don't know if you have the same experience, Dr. Hill, but they come to me, and even when they're older, and they discuss like they lack communication because of what they saw in their household, or they hold animosity towards this parent because what this parent said. Please stop thinking about your personal emotions and think about the child's. Please, I am begging. Start putting the child's emotions ahead of your own.
Yeah, and I'd like to say two things on that point. For one, because I constantly have conversations with people, and they're kind of running on the momentum of how they were brought up, right? The things that their parents did and how their parents raised them. And, sometimes I may have to pinpoint, like, you are aware that that's abuse, right? And they're like, but look at me. I turned out fine. And I'm like, okay, but what you have to understand is just because you survived that treatment doesn't mean that your child will.
Right.
Not that you came out fine, it's that you were lucky enough to survive it, right? And we all know that we're dealing with a generation that isn't mentally as strong as we were. Like, and look, and it's not me undermining their value or degrading them in any way. I mean, it's the honest to God truth, Unfortunately, yes, we did have to go through much more struggle, and this is the reason why we tend to be a little bit tougher. But just because you survived it doesn't mean it was right. And this is what you have to realize, because I speak to a lot of parents who are like, oh yeah, I discipline my children this way or that way, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of extreme. And don't get me wrong, it's not that I don't believe in discipline. I strongly believe in discipline, because I think disrespect is uncompromisable, and certain things are just not to be compromised on whatsoever. But in the same breath, there is a level of discipline that I do think is extreme and is unnecessary. I don't believe in, although there is fear is one of the components of respect. I don't believe in my children fearing me, right? I want them to respect me, but I don't want them to fear me, because if they fear me, then I think that kind of puts a barrier in front of communication, right? Because people are afraid to be open and vulnerable with people that they're afraid of. Also, as well, a second point that you were stating is that as far as the communication when two parents are co-parenting, right? I don't care if you two don't like each other, right? It's so crazy, because people go to jobs and work for managers that they don't like, right? People go to jobs and work with coworkers that they don't like. Why? Because they have a common goal, and that common goal is to receive that check at the end of every 2 weeks. So if you can do that for something as simple as a goddamn check for a few $1,000s, then why can't you do that because you two have the common goal of raising your child right? That's what I understand. There is no, I don't care what it is, what problem is between you and the parent, there shouldn't be any reason that for the sake of raising that child right, that you cannot put that to the side and make that child the priority. I always say, like, that's my issue a lot of times, because people are self-centered and they're selfish, and not to divert, but this is the reason why I have a problem with the whole bad bitch mentality, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because it's self-centered. It's
Mm-hmm.
very self-centered, and it doesn't see the servicing anyone other than that person themselves. You understand? And that mentality does not contribute to sustaining the balance of a family in any way whatsoever. You understand? Because it's all about me, and it's all about putting your emotions, your wants before anything and everyone else, including your children. You know,
Absolutely.
so I would just hope that if there's anything that people pull from this, it's understanding that yes, it's a balance. You know, you have to balance your value and your children's value, but when it comes to who is the priority, your priority should be that child's development and doing your best. We're human, so we're going to make mistakes. Doing your best not to implement any toxicity in the upbringing and the atmosphere that you present for that child.
Yes.
Absolutely. I did have a comment, but Dr. Hill, I didn't want to cut you off. Did you want to say something before I comment to something?
No, go ahead.
You mentioned something earlier, when you said someone response to you is, but look how I turned out. And I often bring this up because my question is, how did you turn out? Are you saying you turned out fine because you have a good job? Because you went to college? Is that your response? But let's talk about how are you communicating your relationships. Let's talk about how you
Mm-hmm.
communicate. Like, what is your different definition of how did I turn out? So I
Yes.
always go back to that person because they're like, well, I could do the, I could discipline it. Well, my mother did it, but you have so much unhealed childhood trauma,
And wounds.
and you don't even realize how much it's impacting you as an individual because you're
Right.
on your career goal or something like that. And it's so much more to life than that. So I want people to start realizing, like, just because and I'm not knocking anyone for their success. I'm all for you to get your education, career, whatever success look like for you. But it's more to that. Like, yes, you may check off the check boxes, but how are you as a person? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
And people realize, yes, we were raised a certain way, but we didn't grow up with social media. So we didn't have social media teaching us who to be or who we should look like. You know what I mean? If we looked at someone on TV and how they want to, we had to guess what their personal life may have been. You know what I mean? But we had to use the neighborhood people or our family really to look up. And even then, the OGs, whoever, still made a child stay in a child's place. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you have parents like forgetting that part, but then these same parents are being trolls or commenting, doing certain posts, but then your kids doing certain things and you mad at them. I'm like, but you doing it, it's just maybe
You
in a
doing the
different,
same thing.
you know what I mean? It's just like, I just feel like sometimes people really not seeing who they are. And I had did a speech the other day, over the weekend, and I said to parents, please stop telling your kids, I don't like you, and really they're a reflection of themselves. You know what I mean? Because now you're saying you don't like yourself because your child is doing it, is acting like you. You know what I mean? And it's affecting that child. But in the same breath, you like, but I turned out okay. Please, let's
Right.
stop kids. We don't like them. I'm not saying you don't have your moment where kids don't get in your nerves because you're human. It's gonna happen. But let's stop that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't I personally can't even fathom that, because I mean the perspective that I see it in is I am the one person in this world that my children are supposed to know at all times. This is my biggest supporter. This is my biggest fan. Um, I am the foundation which they stand on. You understand what I mean? So to hear that I don't like my child, or to hear anything derogatory going, from me to my child. Don't get me wrong, my kids, yeah, they get on my nerves just like everybody. You
Right.
understand what and
Right.
I mean, my oldest child is 23 years old, and me and her, we have very opposing views on almost everything. You understand? So we have disagreements. You know what I mean? We have like full disagreements. But in the same breath, I could never imagine me telling my child like I don't like you, or I could never imagine me telling my child that like she's not worthy. You understand?
Yeah.
Because once again, to hear that from me, which is the person that brought you into this world, to hear that from me, which is the person who was supposed to love you the most, I mean,
Right.
that'll rattle you to your core, because it's like, wait, if my father thinks this about me, then how will the rest of the world? Then the rest of the world must receive me the same way or even worse.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so we have to, I mean, be very mindful of that. And I say that because, growing up, my mother used to tell me all types of craziness. My mother, when she'd get upset, she'd call me a little monkey, she'd call me ugly, all types of things. And it's like, with my relationship with my children, like, my kids couldn't even fathom me calling them that. And, you know,
Right.
I couldn't even fathom me saying something like that to my children, no matter how angry I am. And it's simply because, you know, it's 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 some it's something that I truly believe. Just when I break it down to being a man, and I was telling a friend of mine this last week, that as a man, even before loving my woman or loving my children, my first responsibility is to protect them. You
Hmm.
understand what I mean? And that means protecting them physically, protecting them emotionally, protecting them mentally. You understand? So for me to say something like that or to speak to my child in that way, then, you know, I'm not on my job, because that isn't protection at all.
Right.
That's actually attacking. That's actually destruction
Mm-hmm.
of the being that I'm supposed to protect, that I've been placed on this earth to be tasked with protecting. So
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for that. Dr. Hill, you
Yeah.
saying?
Yes, I definitely harmonize with what you shared earlier about I don't want my children to fear me. I want them to respect me. And I see in the comments we have some single fathers. Someone had mentioned they're a single father. And I definitely want to go back on that because I think some men, and this is just clients I've dealt with, sometimes they feel like I have to really show that dominance, that masculinity to really get that respect. But really, what it creates, especially with young girls and maybe even boys, is this fear. And then now they're not communicating with you. Now they're hiding things. Now, they're going to go tell their teacher and their school counselors versus dad. And so I really like that you spoke on that. It's not so much I don't want my child to fear me, I want them to respect me. And it's a difference because with that respect, you still have that open communication. But with that fear, you block that communication. I know, especially not even outside of clients, but personally for myself, there were certain things I was not telling my dad. Like it was just not happening because I just knew. And mind you, my father, he definitely communicated, but I also grew up in a generation where not as much, mental health was not that big of a thing. So he
Mm-hmm.
definitely communicates more now, but back then, it was certain things like, oh, I'm not telling my dad that. So he can blow up. We're going to keep that in. So I love that you mentioned that. And so for other fathers out there, definitely understand the difference between fear and respect because you can really shut off that communication with your kids.
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, that gentleman who said he was a single father, if he has sons or daughters. I just know that as a man, it's tough to have daughters, right? And the reason being,
Hmm.
because yes, you want them to respect you, but in the same breath, it's like the consequences they can pay can only go so far, right?
Right.
Because okay, so as a father, you tell your child what to do, they don't do it, right? Then you punish them, they still don't do it, right?
Hmm.
Now you have to discipline them, right? Now, and it's a really tough spot, because it's like, okay, yes, damn, I have to discipline my child, but I don't want this young lady to feel that it's okay for a man to put his hands on her. So
Hmm.
it's a really tough position to
It
be in.
is.
You get where I'm? It's a really,
Hmm.
really tough position to be in, because you have to find this balance.
Mm-hmm.
You have, and listen, I'm West Indian, I'm Haitian. You understand? So I definitely believe in discipline. You know,
Right.
if I have to take out the belt and I have to give you a couple of lashes, yes, I will. So that's what I found that's what I discovered the balance was, right? It's like, if you're going to discipline that child, then discipline that child, right? Okay, give them a couple of lashes of the belt. It is what it is. But do not put your hands on that child. You do not punch, slap that child. You know, no, that's out of the question, because you want to make sure that that line isn't blurred. And another thing, and don't get me wrong, like, I think I've disciplined my kids maybe once or twice their entire lives. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? My daughters are 23, 18, and my youngest will be 3 soon. Um, but what I find helpful is after the discipline, I'll go back to that child and I'll say, look, you know, I love you, right? And I want to make sure that you understand that I didn't do this because I'm angry. I did this because you need to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? Trust me. It's not something I wanted to do, but if I have to, then I will. And what I've come to realize is you discipline that child once and you'll almost never have to do it again, because now they understand that, okay, it can go that far if it has to.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, you know, unfortunately. But because a lot of times when you're the father and you're dealing with a young lady and you're saying, I will discipline you, it's like they don't think it's going to happen. They
Mm-hmm.
think that it's all talk. You know what I mean? So it's, once again, like I said, there's no guidebook to this, you know, and
No.
some people don't believe in discipline at all. And I don't knock that.
Right.
You know, because I'm not fully for it, because there's no, look, there's no scientific evidence that it works.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the same thing that I said about people not running on the momentum of how they grew up, maybe that's some residue from how I grew up, because that's how I grew up.
Right.
You know, so I always entertain that thought too, that maybe that's the reason why I think that it works. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but my purpose of even bringing all of that up is just that when it comes to being a dad, raising young women, it's not
It's
easy.
hard.
Yeah,
It's
it's not
definitely
easy.
tough.
And as I'm
Nature
sure,
versus nurture.
as I'm sure as it is, even with a dad raising sons, you know.
Right.
Hmm.
Absolutely. So, what would you say the biggest, from your observation, the biggest misconception society has on fatherhood?
Uh, that it's expendable.
Can you
That
elaborate?
I feel that society kind of pushes this narrative, and I don't understand why that is, because there's so much evidence that children who grow up without fathers grow up to be lacking in some way emotionally, or to have some type of void. But you know, society focuses so much on the importance of mothers, right?
Hmm.
So much. It's as if, you know, it's a cardinal sin to cut your mother out your life. It's a cardinal sin not to love your mother. And I just feel that fathers don't get that same just due, you know. I also believe, I mean, if we're talking about black fathers, you know, there's a huge myth. And that myth is that most of our homes are fatherless, right? Which isn't true, you know. I mean, and you can Google it. The
Mm-hmm.
statistics
Hmm.
say that black fathers are the most involved fathers of any race in
Mm-hmm.
their children's lives. And what people don't get is it's this game that the media plays. It's propaganda, right? So when they say that most black homes are fatherless, what they actually mean is that the father doesn't live in the home.
Mm-hmm.
He's still involved in the children's lives, but he's not in the home, because, you know, him and the child live separately.
Hmm.
But what it does is it puts out this perception, this impression to the world that the father is not involved in the child's lives. In most black families, the fathers aren't there. Listen, man, I can honestly tell you, because I constantly hear about this whole deadbeat father thing. And I'll ask you this. How many deadbeat fathers do you know? Many? Or do you know more involved fathers?
I definitely know more involved fathers.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I
And
know
it,
more involved. I know some
exactly.
deadbeat, but I know
And I'm
more involved.
sure everyone that's watching this live, when they think about it, it's like it's 9 to 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
10 to,
Right.
it may be even 20 to 1. You understand what I mean? When you think about it, you're like, wait, how many deadbeat dads do I know? I don't I don't know that many, if any, you know, but how many involved fathers, how many involved black fathers do you know? Many, you understand? And it's this agenda. It's the continuance of it's the continuance of this agenda that the world has to make the black man look like a monster, to make him look no good, you know what I mean? But I just need people to know that, I mean, it's fathers are very important. Fathers
Mm-hmm.
very important. And what fathers do is that they provide that child with confidence. They provide that child with courage. Um,
Yes.
they provide that child with safety. They provide that child with security so that as that child grows up, that child feels that they can go out there and take on the world because they know that their dad is standing behind their back. You have to understand that, yes, mothers are nurturing. Mothers are amazing, right? When that child is sick, that child wants to go and curl up under their mom. But
Mm-hmm.
when that child is scared, that child wants to be under their dad.
Absolutely.
I agree. I
Absolutely.
definitely agree. I do. Okay, I'm sorry. I have to ask this because I might ruffle a little feathers, but this is something that definitely I side-eyed on Father's Day. So Moses, I gotta ask your opinion on this. What are
Mm-hmm.
your thoughts on women? Because I'm with you on the agenda that's being put out, right? I do agree on that. But I also see how on Father's Day, there are women who will say Happy Father's Day to myself. What do you think about that? Like, if you don't mind, like, what is your opinion? What type of agenda do you think that might be sending out when women do things like that?
The only thing that I can say is that when the king dies, the queen remains the queen. She doesn't become the king. You know, and I'll tell you a brief story. So when my daughter was a freshman in high school, she came home with a leaflet for an event that they were having at the school, and it was for Parent Appreciation Day. And when I looked in parentheses, it said for mothers, grandmothers, uh, and guardians. There was no mention of fathers whatsoever.
Mm,
And I called the school, and I was flipping, you know, like because I was highly upset, you know, and they were saying that well, you know, when we have these events, fathers don't really show up. And I said, okay, but when you put Parent Appreciation Day and you specify it as nothing but mothers, grandmothers, and guardians, what message does that send to the children? You know,
Mm-hmm.
right.
it's the continuance of the message that you guys have been sending, which is the fact that we don't matter. You know, once again, you know, I'm a single dad. It's just me and my daughter, and I remember bringing her to the hospital and being pissed off because when I brought her, the first question they asked is, "Where is her mother?" And my response was, if her mother brought her here without me, would you ask where's her father? Why are you asking me where's her mother?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, I'm an equal parent.
Right.
The rights that she has, I have. The way that she's recognized as a parent, so should I be. You know, and I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
lie, it's disheartening, it's discouraging. How about the fact that something that I learned, which is crazy, when her mother passed, and I went down to family court to get legal custody. They said that I needed to get her grandmother to come down to the court to give me permission to have custody of my child, a child that I've been taking care of since the
Wow.
day I was born, because something I wasn't aware of, if you aren't married and something happens to the mother, legal custody goes to the grandmother, not the father.
Wow.
Wow. I did
Yeah,
not know that.
I wonder if
yeah.
that's the state, that is that New York State. I mean, it's wrong either way. I wonder if that's like all states rules or because that's insane.
It, it,
Right.
it is, you know, and when I came home and I told my daughter this, and she's like, Dad, do I need to go down there? Like, you've been taking care of me since I was born. You
Right.
know, but you just have to really think about how much of a slap in the face it is. And you know, it's hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
It's hurtful. You understand that this child that you would basically die for, that you would lose your life for, you know, in a second, this child that you would sacrifice anything for,
Right.
that the world doesn't recognize your efforts just as much as the other parent, you know, and it's
Hmm.
almost like they expect you to not be a part of that child's life. It's like that's the impression, you know, unless someone says differently. The impression is that, you know, oh, you're not there. That's the expectation almost, and it's just it's sickening, and you know, it's definitely discouraging, definitely. But at the end of the day, you know, as men on this planet, I mean, it's just another cross for us to bear. It's just another weight on our back. And in no way, and I want to make sure that I say this because for some reason, every time a man speaks of the burdens that he carries, women take it as some type of jab that their burden isn't just as heavy. That's not what I mean. I mean, I can speak on my burdens without it necessarily being me undermining someone else's, you know.
Right.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
this isn't a competition, you know. Black men, we love black
Right.
men. The world keeps pushing this narrative that we don't. It's, I don't know.
I want to ask this question because we already 8:45. You know, Instagram be hating to cut us off in an hour, and I really want to get the question out and hopefully
Oh
read some.
yeah.
But so I'm also a professor. I actually right before this, that's why I'm like all over the place. Was teaching my family assessment class, and coincidentally, I actually didn't plan this how so this fell. We were discussing men and life cycle, and we were having a conversation, and it actually reminded me something of what we posted early on our steps page. We were saying subconsciously we forget about men in certain situations. For example, a woman having a miscarriage, it's a loss for both, but we
Hmm.
will on the woman and forget that the man may be grieving as well. When women have a baby, we focus on women postpartum depression, but we never think about men, how they're impacted by such a huge transition in their life. And, prenatal depression, things like that. Because again, as you spoke about, as being active father, you also waking up in the middle of the night, changing diapers and feeding and changing your sleep habits and no longer could go out, things like that. Do you feel like you ever experienced that, like prenatal depression, or know anyone that may have, or like, what are your thoughts about that revolving men,
I,
period?
I, I don't know. And the reason is because, you know, I'm not well versed enough to speak scientifically. Emotions run through me, but I can't diagnose myself, right? I
Right.
just know that the experience with every last one of my children was totally different. For one, my first child, it was instant. It was instantaneous, right? The connection was instantaneous. Like literally the day she was born, like I'm looking at the incubator, like I just met you and I love you. Like I don't really understand this. This is um with my second child. It took a while. It took a couple of weeks for it to sink in. Like it's like I'm looking at the baby. I'm like, is this really my kid?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it took like 2 weeks for it to really sink in. Like, oh wow, I have another child.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know, you know, because that's my question to you. Because once again, like I said, I'm not uh I'm not educated in that field enough to know if that temporary disconnect the first couple of weeks, if that was any type of emotional trauma, or if that was any type of emotional issues that was going through, or if it's just
Yeah.
logic. You know, I'm so used to having one, and now there's another one in this world, and it's just like, wow, like it's taking a while for it to sink in. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, listen, I do know that emotionally dealing with some of my children, it was easier than others.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that by the time I got to my third child, I don't know, I became very maternal. I had always been maternal because from my first child, when I had my eldest daughter, you know, she was up under me 24/7. But by the time I got to my third child, like I was just very maternal. I just always wanted my child up under me. And because I work from home, you know, I don't really have a set schedule, and her mother had a conventional 9 to 5. So I was the one that woke up in the middle of every night for every, middle of the night feeding, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day. And I don't know, like I just I stayed up, days on end with the child, and it just never was a burden for me. I don't know
Yeah.
if that was my third child and I was used to it by then,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean, it was still tough. Don't get me wrong. Those sleepless nights. But yeah. So it's hard for me to answer that question because, truth be told, I don't know what would constitute being able to diagnose myself with that. I just know that every experience was different.
Dr. Hill, did you want to say
Yeah.
what I said?
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that because, I think for women, we don't know we're going through postpartum really until after the fact or when we talk to people. I think for us, our indicator is more so excessive crying
Mm-hmm.
or like, the burnout. I think that's our indicator. So I can understand what you're saying about like, I don't really know. I just felt feelings. And then I can also agree. When I had my second child, I went through that same feeling. So it makes me wonder, like, was that a part of postpartum? Because I too went through that feeling of like, man, I got two kids. Like, wait a minute, this feels a little different. And you really do go through a different, almost a different bonding phase with your second child because
Hmm.
you really are wrapping your mind around the
Mind
fact of
around.
like, wow, I have a second child. And for me, my first was a daughter, was my daughter, and then my second was my son. So it was even like, oh my gosh, I got this little boy in front of me. Like, so I can agree to that too. And it makes me wonder, is that also a part of postpartum?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think as women, we only think about the emotional part, but I really wonder for men, is yours more logical? So, any men out there, can you guys definitely comment down below if you experienced it or what your experience was like? I'm definitely interested.
Absolutely. For me, I want to say one, I'm happy that you mentioned a disconnect because I know actual clients I've worked with and personal on a friendship level who did not connect with their child right away and was like
Hmm.
so heartbroken over it and thought something was so wrong with them. And I know people that experienced their first child, their second child, and it's different things. And it is definitely a part of postpartum. But eventually, most times you do have that connection. But I feel like, again, because society makes it feel like from the time they're in your womb or from the time you hear that your partner is pregnant, it's supposed to become instant. And everyone is different. You know what I mean? So
Right.
they have to figure out where they fit in. So I want people to stop trying to compare this. So I mean, of course, it makes it a little bit easier if the connect is instantly, but it doesn't quite always happen that way. Now, if months and stuff pass and it's still, I definitely think you should seek help and get the resources that you need. But
Or
it
if you're hurting that child, you better seek some
Right.
help.
absolutely,
Right. Casey Anthony,
absolutely.
listen, it's real.
Hello. Um, Absolutely. But I feel like that's important. I feel like that's swept under the rug, but it happens. And I feel like, and I'm happy, Dr. Hill, like we have this platform to just talk about these conversations that
Yes.
people are afraid to talk about. And no, I can't speak from a man perspective of what they felt, but I've known men that's felt dealt with miscarriages and every man I know who dealt with a miscarriage, their instinct, because their protector, was to make sure that their partner was okay,
Mhm.
but they were still grieving.
Hmm.
And sometimes they will lash out. Sometimes, they handle it different ways, but no one never really checked on them. But uh, it's a loss. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially if you were anticipating this pregnancy. So I just feel like, society could do better at, and I'm not saying, men want affection different ways, but acknowledging that not only, yes, it happened to a woman is dealing with it physically and emotionally. So I guess, yes, it is double, right? But I think we also need to do better acknowledging a man lost as well, also. And
Yes.
they could be grieving as well. And, to be more sensitive to that topic. You know what I mean? Especially
Hmm.
was ready. You know what I mean? So I don't think society does well with addressing men's feelings when it comes to certain things like that. So I wanted that. I thought that was important for us to discuss. Um, we have a lot of comments.
We do.
People want to know about money and violence. You know, that's always the number one question. So
There'll be news soon.
can we
God
address
willing,
the elephant in
there'll
the
be
room,
news
please?
soon as far as that's concerned. You know, and I just want to say one thing. When that news comes out, I just want y'all to remember that I always kept my word. And I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so it was about 5, 6. I probably missed more that actually
Yeah, it was a lot.
money and violence 3. Where is it? So I wanted to get that out of the way. I also see people said that they were from Detroit, from Boston. That's showing us love. I appreciate it.
It,
I love that everyone is joining. A few people. I saw someone, I skipped past it, and I don't want to do that. Said a lot of this topic was discussed. I can't remember if it was a male or female in their book. Please feel free to. We don't hate on anyone. We want everybody to put when. Please feel free to list your book in the comments. Where they could get it at. We'll be interested. We show love to everyone. I'm glad that people are saying more people need to hear this topic. Dr. Hill, you want to let them know
Yes.
where this video at and things like that?
Yes, yes. I was trying to scroll up to see because it was a lot of comments. So thank you guys so much. And if we missed them, please send us a DM. If there was more on this topic that you want to hear about or would love for us to discuss more on a future topic, please send us a message. We love new topics. But for
Yeah.
those who just joined, we're so sorry we are about to end. But no worries, you can catch it on our YouTube. Click the link in our bio, or you can look us up on YouTube at Steps Counseling Consulting. And make sure you hit that follow button. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can stay updated when we post our Mental Health Mondays as well as our Talk Therapy Thursdays. And we also want to mention we have on our merch, we have on our Say Yes to Counseling
Yeah.
shirt.
I have on my kids' mental health matters too shirt.
I got on my
Yes.
white shirt from Banana Republic.
Hey, it's from Steps. He
Yeah.
just playing. That's our white T line. But
Okay,
anywho, y'all, if
there you
y'all
go.
want
I'm about to write
Steps of
right
right.
there at the consulate, SY2C. Yes,
um
you guys.
can
Oh,
I
I'm
just
so
say
sorry.
one
Yeah,
last
go
thing
ahead.
that I think is very, 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 very important. Um I just wanted to speak to the how high a standard, right, society holds mothers to.
Mm-hmm.
Uh it's a lot of pressure on you guys, and I just feel that society expects you to be perfect, right? To the point where you feel like you can't stutter step. You feel like you can't ask for help because if you do, that makes you a bad mother. And I'm speaking to situations that I've gone through multiple times in my life. Right, a child has two parents for a reason. Right, a child has a mother and a child has a father. And even if that union is broken and you guys are no longer together and you're co-parenting, that child still has a mother and that child still has a father. So if you're going through a hard time and you're going through a struggle and that child is in a better position, I mean, that child's father is in a better position, therefore that child doesn't have to go through that struggle. And that child's father says, look, I'm not trying to take this child from you. Just give me my child for the moment. And when you get back on your feet, I'll give the child right back to you because they don't need to go through this. You know, you don't need to feel like that's going to mean that you're a bad mother because it's not, because you're actually doing what's best for your child. You're actually being strong and loving your child enough to let your child go because you know it's the best. Although it's the hardest thing to do, it's the best thing to do for that child at the moment.
Yeah.
Um, I think mothers just need to remember that even though, you know, society holds y'all to this immeasurable standard, y'all are human,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and your circumstances aren't always going to be great, but that's the advantage of that child having two parents. The
Yeah.
Yes.
advantage is that although you guys may not be together, y'all don't share a life, which means that y'all circumstances aren't always going to be the same. You may be doing great, he may be doing bad. When you're doing bad, he may be doing great. Utilize that.
Mm-hmm.
Utilize. You understand what I'm saying? Because the truth is, although that child may live with you, that child has two homes. That child has the father's home, that child has your home. You know what I mean? So don't feel bad if you have to utilize your teammate. That's the only way to secure the win, is to
Mm-hmm.
not be afraid to use the teammate. Pass the ball. You understand what I mean? And I'm just using a sports reference. The child is not a ball, but
Yeah.
pass the ball if you have to, so that way we can secure the win and win the game, so that our child can grow up to be an emotionally and mentally balanced human being.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So I want to
Yes.
say that my mom, I lived with my dad full time for a couple of years. I think my dad is the dopest dad in the world, but he's always been super active, still super active, and now was a super granddad. But yeah, I lived with my mom, and shout out to my stepmother for a couple of years, and I never looked at my mother as she gave up on me, or I knew it was for the right thing, and I'm still super. My mom is the dopest mom in the world. So thank you for bringing that. Up, because that is important, because I was raised
Very much.
with some dope parents in my life.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Really quick, Mose, I just want you to get an opportunity to shout out where they can follow you at, and then Dr. Hill can wrap it up.
You guys can follow me on Instagram at Cloud9TV _. That's CLOUD, the number 9TV _. You can also follow me on Twitter at Motivation. That's M as in Michael, OE as in Edward, T as in Tom, IV as in Victor, AT as in Tom, ION as in Nancy. And other than that, you can see me on the street and say, "What up, Mo?"
And follow us. Please follow us on YouTube,
Yes.
Instagram, Steps Counseling Consultant. And we
Yes.
do it once a month on Thursdays, Talk Therapy Thursday, every third Thursday, and every first Monday. Because of 4th of July, Dr. Hill, correct me if I'm wrong, we're skipping the first Monday and moving to
Yes.
the second
Yes.
Monday. Please follow us. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Dr. Hill,
Yes.
before we wrap it up,
Yes. And
and
for
thank
those
you.
who
First
just
of all, thank
joined,
you, Moses. Thank you, by the way.
yes.
Thank you for
Yes.
having me, guys. I really enjoyed this.
Appreciate you so much. You dropped so many gems. And yes, for those who just joined, if you are interested in counseling, please send us an email at info@stepscounselingconsulting.com. We are always accepting new clients, and we definitely want you guys to say yes to counseling. Everyone have a beautiful night. Thank you so much, Moses. We always appreciate talking with you, and just we learn so much from a male perspective. So we thank
Happy
you.
Father's Day.
Happy
Thank
Father's Day. Yes. Happy Father's Day to the dads out there. And again, for
you.
those
Happy
I see that are
Father's Day.
still joining, thank you. Look, we'll take. And for those who just joined, you can catch this on YouTube. All right, y'all. Bye, everyone.
Peace.